When I first began working in juvenile justice facilities about 20 years ago, most facilities, or many facilities, did not have strong strategies in place to protect these young people from taking their own lives. Fortunately, today, now they do. Whether I'm consulting with large urban facilities or small rural facilities, almost all, if not all, facilities have suicide prevention training for all their staff. When youth come in, they screen them all for suicide risk upon entry to the facility, and if they seem to be a potential suicide risk, they refer them to a qualified mental health professional for a more intense or more in-depth suicide assessment. These components are essential to keeping youth alive. Line staff are required to intensively monitor youth who are at high risk for suicide. They will monitor and intensely supervise those who report suicidal thoughts or engage in suicidal behavior. And these youth are typically housed in suicide-resistant rooms. Clearly, keeping youth away from things that could kill them is critically important, which is why you don't see a lot of suicides occurring when youth are housed in suicide-resistant rooms. But if youth are already feeling depressed, hopeless, isolated, or alone, what potential impact would it be to be housed in this room? What if a suicidal youth was in this room for 23 hours a day for several days in a row, and they're only let out for 1 hour for exercise and to go to the bathroom? What if these youth have to remove their clothes or to wear a suicide smock? What if they have an adult authority figure watching them constantly as they sit alone in their misery, anger, or frustration in nothing but their underwear or one of these suicide safety smocks? These are all too common scenarios. Do you think that these strategies are going to help a youth feel better if they're feeling depressed, feeling frustrated, if they're angry or feeling ashamed? Or do you think it could potentially make them feel worse? Suicide precautions are very different than treatment. When you restrict a youth's access to things that could potentially help them to kill themselves, or you watch them more closely, that absolutely does help keep them more safe. But it does little to decrease their mental health symptoms, their distress, or their feelings of hopelessness. In fact, when they're isolated from their peers, isolated from staff, isolated from programming, the suffering of suicidal juveniles often can get worse. When they're alone in a cold and empty room, there's very little to distract them from their problems. And in fact, they have a lot of time to think of very creative ways with which to kill themselves.